Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcode.com, and this is the next video in the Ruby on Rails React build. Now, at the end of the last video, I was having some trouble doing an asynchronous action in useReducer. Okay, so here's what it comes down to. useReducer, you have to return a value for it to become the new state. Okay, that we kind of established before, but here's the problem: when you're doing something asynchronously, you can't return the value. Okay, because technically you don't have access to the value either until the .then, if you're using the .then method, but then you're inside of a .then. That's the problem. So when I returned the new state, it didn't count as a return statement for the reducer. It counted as a return statement for the .then, which then just returns the value as another promise. And if you use async await, it just does the same thing. Anything you return in async await is then another promise. So I tried to turn the reducer to an async function, but that just made it always return a promise. So bottom line is, you can't really do asynchronous stuff in the reducer. You have to do it outside of the reducer, then pass the result into the reducer via dispatch. So just to walk through what I did. So just to show you sort of the current state of how this works now, I created a new piece of state called user data. Okay, that's going to collect the user data. And then I created a use effect. Okay, so when you click on handle submit, instead of handle submit calling dispatch, what I did is I turned the two actions, those two objects, I turned them into two functions. Two functions that do the initial fetch and return the first .then, because technically they're going to return the same data, the user, whether you're logging in or signing up. So in that case, I took the second .then with data and just chained it off there. Okay, and again, all this is going to be pushed up to GitHub so you can see it. So I chained off that .then, set the user data, which sets the state, the user data state, and then technically the React.useEffect, which runs anytime user data changes, then passes it on to dispatch. Okay, so then it receives the user data and takes the user data and sends the dispatch. That is probably a little bit more complicated than it really needed to be. Okay, and it was because I had to try a couple different things before I realized that I had my reducer as an async function. Probably the simplest thing I could have done is put the dispatch back over here. That should be fine, but we're going to leave it like this. Okay? But basically what happens at the dispatch, I'm passing the type auth, and then passing the payload of the token and the username, because I still really do need this in my app state, because I'm going to need the token throughout the entire application and the username. Okay, so I wanted to make sure I passed it in there. So the auth state, here we go, it takes the auth type and then just creates the new state and then returns the new state, and that becomes a state. So it works now. I can log in. Okay. That here's what I'll do. Okay, I'm gonna just show you guys the reducer real quick, so you can, if you wanted to pause and take a look at the state of my reducer. And then I'm gonna go back to auth, and I'm just gonna first show you this part. Okay, so again, this is, I want to pause and take a look at what I got so far. Okay, there's the actions object, where I have two functions, sign up and log in. And then there's handle submit. And yeah. Okay, so that's why that got a little more complicated than it needed to be. Probably in hindsight, what would have been a better route is for me to have created two functions, like a handle login, handle sign up functions, and then chose which one I'm going to run based on the the form prop. Okay, based on the URL param. Cool. Okay, so that was a little bit more complicated, but educational. Now you know, when you're using useReducer, don't do async stuff in the reducer. Do it before you run dispatch. Okay, so now I can log in. Okay, so again, if I refresh this page, go back over here, refresh, I click login. Okay, and again, pay attention to this state right here. So right now, token is null, the username is null. I type in test1, test1. I hit login. Okay. What did I just do? Did I hit the button? There we go. Okay, go back to the components. Okay, and you can see the tokens there now. And then the username is there now. Wonderful. Okay. Whew. That was a lot more work than it needs to be. So let's actually just style the form right now. Make this form look a little bit prettier. Okay. So let's go down here, and I'm going to call this div. I'm going to give it a class name of auth. Okay, so that way we designate the div that the auth form will be in. I'm going to head back to my CSS. Okay, and then let's style the auth component. Okay. There we go. So what I want to do is style the form inputs. So I can pass out all the form inputs like this. So what I'm going to do is do dot auth, because that's the class, form input. Let me just make sure that's how I have that set up. It's a lowercase auth. Yep. Okay. I'm going to say that all of these will have a background color that is crimson, like we used up there. Crimson. They're going to have a font color that is white. They are going to have a padding of, let's say, 8 pixels. Okay, and we're going to have border radius of, let's say, 5 pixels to give it a little rounded edges. And we're going to make them block elements, so that way they all stack on top of each other. Display block. Okay, and let's see how that's looking now. So I click on login. Okay, so that's looking a little bit better. We're getting there. Go back home for a moment. Okay, oh, I want to keep styling it. Let's give them a margin so that way they're not so stuck to each other. So margin is 10 pixels. Let's say text align, center. Okay, and let's see how that looks now. That's good. Let's say 10 pix auto. See if either of these center it. There we go. Now let's just make the margin. Now let's make the actual like div form dot auth form. Let's give that padding of 50 pixels. Okay, so that way it's just like a decent amount below. Okay, let's make the font size a little bit bigger. Font size 1.2 EMs. So 1 EM just means 1 times the font size, 1 times the default font size. So 2 would be 2 times the default font size of the entire document. Okay, so that's looking a bit better. Okay. Now let's make it where it takes you to the dashboard when you're done logging in. Okie dokie. So basically what we want to happen, a couple things we're going to want to have happen. So let's go back to auth. So once there is user data, okay, what we're going to want to do, let me think about this. What would be the best way to do this? Actually, yeah. What we're going to want to do is, one, put it in local storage, because the thing is we don't want people to have to log in every time they refresh the page. So we have to use local storage. You don't have to use local storage. There's different ways you can do this. But we're going to use local storage to store the token. Okay? And then we're going to set the logic that if there's a token already in local storage, it's automatically going to take you to the dashboard. So first, we're going to store that information, the token and whatnot, in local storage. So we do window.localStorage, and then in window.localStorage. Okay. Let's actually do it this way. Let me take. Let's take this, Control C, copy. And what we're going to do with local storage, we're going to put in there is JSON.stringify. Well, first you have to put a key. So we're going to put the auth as the key. And then the data that's going to be held on that key is, because basically local storage is a key value database. So basically you store strings in keys. It's like a giant object that's saved in the browser. Stringify. So we're going to turn this object into a string. So that way the token and the username is saved in local storage. Okie dokie. Then what we're going to do is then we will push, I'm going to use props.history.push. This is a function that allows you to change the URL, and we will change this to /dashboard. Okay, so that way they're going to be on the dashboard page instead. Cool. So that should do that. Let's try that out. Okay, so we refresh. Let's first take a look at our components. So if I go to my components and I take a look at my context provider, that's my app state. Okay, right now, again, no token, no URL. If I go to application and I go over here to local storage, right now there really shouldn't be anything in there. So you see like there's nothing in there. I'm not sure why GraphQL is in there. Must be from a different app, because I develop other things on localhost 4000. Okay, but we'll just let that go. Now I'm going to log in. Test 1. Test 1. Okay. Now let's see here. That looks like it didn't quite work out the way I would have liked. So window.localStorage. Oh, that's right. That is not a function. Okay, why? Because it's not window.localStorage, it's window.localStorage.set. I'm setting a key and value. That's the function. So let me go back. Let's try this again. Refresh. Log in. I'm going to go to local storage so you can see this change. Test 1. Test 1. Okay, it seems like it errored again. See why? So it's set. It's not a function. Let me think about that. Local storage. That should be a function. Local local storage. So let's see here. Part of the window object dot local storage dot set item. It's set item. That's the function. Ha. Okay. Let's try that again. So I go to login, test 1, test 1. I hit login. Okay, and see I got pushed to dashboard. That's fun. And if I go in here, see there I see the auth key. Okay, with the token and the username. Okay. Yay. So this works. There's also session storage, which works the same way. The only difference between session and local storage is it stays there. So if I close this browser and reopen it, that's still going to be there. Session storage, if I close the tab and reopen it, it'll still be there. But if I close the browser and reopen it, it disappears. All the session storage gets cleared out. So it's only for a browser session, while local storage is persistent browser storage. Okay. This is not a React thing. Local storage is just something that's in the browser. It's like a little mini database you can use. So if you were to make like a little mini browser game, the person could save their game data in local storage. It's a pretty neat little feature. There's also other ways of saving data. Like if you're doing progressive web apps, you might want to use like an IndexedDB, which is even a little bit more complicated, but you can do plenty with local storage. So, great. We can go to the dashboard right now. If I were to refresh, my token's still there, but it doesn't know that I'm logged in. Okay, so see I'm back at home. So we want to create the logic that it's going to check local storage to see if that token's there to see that I'm logged in. So let me go to, where would I want to do that? I'm probably going to want to do that on app. Okay, I want it to always check when the page loads that I am on, whether I'm logged in or not. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a react.ustate. We'll come back to what it does. I need the hook, so I need to bring in my global state. So import use app state from /app state.jsx. Okay, and then I'm going to need to get const. I'm going to go take out my state. I don't think, yeah, I am going to need my dispatch. And I'm going to grab that out of our custom hook, use app state. Okay. And what this is going to do, so again, we have to pass in an arrow function. And we're going to pass an empty array because we really only want this to do this once every time the site loads. Okay, and what this is going to do, actually, let me check one thing here. Does app have control access over push? So if I go to app, new entry, I have the app state. But I don't have the router props. That's something to think about. Okay. So I may need to house this. Well, we'll see. We'll see how I can do this. I may have to, I may have to switch this to have to put this in like home and dashboard, because they are going to have access to the router props. Let me think about that. There is a way for me to do it just straight from the window. So let me just remember what that is. Okay, window dot there we go, dot location. Okay, yeah, we can change our, we can do it that way. So we'll just change it from there and see if that works. Let's try that out first, and we'll go there. Okay. So first thing I want to do is check, is the token in local storage? Okay, so I'm going to say const auth equals window dot local storage, and again, this window object represents the browser window, so it's information, it's like functions and information that the browser window was using. Window dot local storage dot get item, and the item I want to get is auth. But again, that's only a string, so I need to parse it. So JSON dot parse, and then I need to wrap this in parentheses. Okay. Now, then I want to check, does that token exist? So if there's nothing in there, like there is no auth key in local storage, it's just going to get back nothing. It's going to be undefined. So then I can do if auth, and if it's undefined, that's going to be false. And if it's there, it's true. So if it's false, I'm going to want to push you back to the main page. Okay. So I want to say window dot location dot href. I don't know. Do I want to do href? Path name. Window.location, object can be written without window prefix, returns the href. The current page, returns the domain name, returns. Okay. But I want to be able to change. Change history. Navigator timing. Width. Where's the part about redirecting? Using window.location to change URL. This replace function, the replace method of the location interface replaces the current resource. The difference is the assign method is that after using replace, the current page will not be saved in session history. Can happen because of the security violation. Yeah, that's going to refresh the page. Let's see here. Host, develop Mozilla. So let's try that. Okay, so I think we want to do window.location equals window.location.host plus slash. Okay, so that means it'll take you back to the root page. And if, and again, if this doesn't work, then that means I'm going to need that history.push function, which means I'm going to have to remove this logic over to the home component and the dashboard component. So that way, no matter what page you're on, it's checking whether you're logged in or not, and moving you back to the home page if you're not logged in, moving you back to the dashboard if you are logged in. So window.location.location.host. Okay. And what I want to do here is that if it is there, then I want to, one, dispatch. Okay, and that's the dispatch is going to be the type. It's going to be passing in an object. The type of action is auth, and the payload is auth, except this is a string. And that'll just reset the same thing as before. And then I want to push you to the dashboard. Window dot location equals Control C dashboard. Okay, now let's see if this works. Localhost wants to open this application. What application? Okay, so let's refresh this page. Not the result I wanted, so that's telling me we're gonna have to move this. Unless I somehow make app a route, which I could do. So maybe that's what we should do. So let's go back to index.jsx, and instead let's make this a route whose path is slash, so it'll always show up because it's not exact path. And the component equals app. And then I just have to make sure I bring in route over here. So what this does is just makes app rendered by route, which will give it access to the router props. So that looks like yeah, let's see here. Let's just double check that that worked. Components. So, oh. Now I don't see any components at all. Cancel. Well, let me just comment out that stuff from app. Let's make this. Just comment this out for a moment. Refresh. Okay, good. Okay, that's what was holding it. So if I go to app, so now app's all the way down here. App has the props. Good. Okay, stay. Yep. Okay, so we're in good shape. That worked. So what I want to do is I want to change. I want to just get rid of this line, and I want to get rid of this line. Then let's bring this if statement back. Okay, and then what I want to do is here. This is going to be props dot history dot push to the dashboard. Again, so if you're logged in, you're pushed to the dashboard, and if you're not logged in, you stay right where you're at. But in case you're on dashboard, it'll take you back to the home page. Okay, and that's good. And it only runs once when the page loads. So when you refresh, it'll always do that check. Like, are you logged in or not? Save. So let's go back to the main page. If I hit refresh, and see, it pushes me to the dashboard because I'm logged in. Problem is, now I'm always going to be on the dashboard. Okay. So what if I need to log out? I need to be able to log out. So what I need to do is create something in navigation. So let's go to our nav component. And we're going to create a link tag to, actually, do I need it to be a link tag? Let me think about that for a second. Yeah, it's not changing the route or anything. So this is just going to be a div. And this will be logout. And all this is going to do is when it has an on click, and when it's clicked on, it'll just have an arrow function. And all this arrow function does is just do dispatch, so I won't have to do the hook thing. Dispatch, dispatch, and then inside dispatch, it'll be in the object with the type, and the type will be logout. I don't need a payload, so I won't pass a payload. So I'll just leave it at that. That will do that for me, but I need to make sure I bring in that. So I need to import use app data. So the cool thing about having use app data or app state is that, again, I can use this state all across my app. I don't have to worry about passing in props. I just import it wherever I need it. From dot slash slash appstate.jsx. Okay, and then I got to make sure I bring it in. So const, and all I really want is the dispatch. I don't need the state, so I'm just going to destructure that from use appstate. There we go. So now when I click this button, it's going to send a dispatch and look for an event called logout. So I need to go add that to my reducer. So I'm going to head back to appstate.jsx where my reducer is, and I need to add a new case. Case logout. Okay, and if we're logging out, then the new state is going to equal the existing state, except now the token will be null again, and the token will be null again, the username will be null again. Okay, and then we're going to return the new state. So that'll update that. So that way we take away your username and token from the state. But then I also need to clear it from local storage. Yeah, I guess I can do that here. Window.localStorage.remove item. And I want to remove auth. Okay. And that is fine. Cool. So now if I go back, refresh the page, I'm going to log in, test 1. Well, I'm actually technically already logged in. So let me hit the logout button actually. And that, did that have the effect that we wanted? Oh, my state's undefined. Oh no, that's, here we go. And yep, token is null. Good. And the username is null. So it had the effect that we wanted. So now if I go back to the main page and I refresh, see I stay at home because I'm not logged in anymore. Now the only issue I have with that is that logout did not push me back to the home page. So I do want it to do that. So I'm going to go back to nav and just add that to the arrow function. And if I remember right, this nav, is it rendered by a route? It is not. So I have to wrap it around with router to get it to do what I want it to do. So I am going to have to do this. Route path equals slash, because again, if you do just path equals slash, it's going to always be on the screen. It's only if you put the exact, that'll only show up if it's just slash. Component equals nav. Okay, cool. And that should make the router props available here. So now I can do props.history.push and push you back to the main page. Okay, good. Okay, so that way if I'm on dashboard, it'll take you away from the dashboard. You won't leave what's on the screen on the screen. Okay. Save. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to do. Also, we want this log in button to be conditional. So, actually, I am going to want the state. State. Okay. Because what I'm going to do here is I am going to make this conditional. So we're going to say this particular div only renders if state.token evaluates as true, which means it exists, so it's not null. If not, just don't render anything here. Okay, so see, when I'm logged out, I don't see a login button. Now if I click login, okay, I type in test1, see, now I'm logged in and the logout button appears. And if I click logout, it disappears and I'm back on the home page. Good. So that's good. Although sign up and login shouldn't probably show up either unless I'm logged out. So I'm going to make this conditional too. Okay, so I'm going to put I'm going to wrap these around one giant curly. Okay. And then here we're going to say if not state.token. So basically, if state.token evaluates as false, then render this. Okay, and I'll wrap this in a parenthesis. And I need to add a fragment, so that way it doesn't complain. Yep, there we go. Because again, they're at the same level, so like generally it's not allowed. And then I gotta finish the ternary operator. If you're logged in, that won't show up. Okay, so let's test that out. So now if I log in, sign up and login should disappear, and logout should appear. Yep, that works. Good. And then when I log out, sign up and login reappear. Okay, so that's neat. Okay, so now we can actually start building up the dashboard with all the functionality to start seeing your notes and adding notes and all that stuff. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that for now. This is starting to take shape, but now authentication is done. You can log in, sign up, and yeah, we're good to go. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great one and enjoy.